We'd like to remind you once again that there is translation services available for this event. Channel 3 is for Portuguese, 5 for English, and 6 for French, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the pleasure to welcome the Honorable Vice Prime Minister, Minister of Education, Tertiary Education, Science and Technology of the Republic of Mauritius, the Honorable Mrs. Leela Devi Dukan Lachuman. You may please be seated. Thank you. The Vice Prime Minister, Minister of Education, Tertiary Education, Science and Technology from the Republic of Mauritius, Honorable Mrs. Leela Devi Dukan Lachuman, Honorable Dr. Monica Musenero, Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Uganda, Chairperson of the African Union Specialized Technical Committee for Education, Science, Technology and Innovation, and ADEA Steering Committee member, Honorable Ministers, Mr. Albert Sengiwima, the Executive Secretary, ADEA, distinguished country representatives, representatives of international, regional, and local organizations, members of the Diplomatic Corps, representatives of the private sector, representatives of the civil society, partners of the global education sector, the 345 delegates attending the 2022 ADEA Triennial in person, and the 539 attending online, colleagues of the Ministry of Education and of ADEA, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. A very, very good morning to you and welcome to the 2022 ADEA Triennial hosted by the Government of Mauritius. The theme of this triennial is reflecting on the impact of COVID-19 on Africa's educational systems and how to build resilience to sustain the development of skills for the continent. I am Professor Kiran Burjan, Director of Tertiary Education and Scientific Research at the Ministry of Education, Tertiary Education, Science and Technology of the Republic of Mauritius. My co-host this morning is Ms. Hélène Aminata Charpentier, Senior Project Officer from the Association for the Development of Education in Africa, ADEA.
5 ans, mesdames et messieurs, que nous avons attendu de nous retrouver pour cette triennale, pour parler de l'éducation pour l'Afrique et de l'éducation en Afrique, Et depuis la dernière triennale en 2017 à Dakar, tant de choses se sont passées dans le monde et encore plus dans le monde de l'éducation. Et quand nous pensons à la triennale 2022, une personne nous vient à l'esprit pour ses efforts et sa volonté considérable dans l'organisation de cet événement. Cela a été fait avec le ministère de l'Éducation de Maurice, avec le soutien du vice-premier ministre, honorable Madame Leela Devi Duncan Lachuman. Cette personne aussi est Monsieur Albert Sengiumba. Mesdames et Messieurs, veuillez accueillir sous vos applaudissements le secrétaire exécutif de l'ADEA.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Helen. Merci beaucoup de votre introduction. Je vais parler en français à mon intervention qui ne va pas être très longue. La première question que je viens d'avoir tout de suite de Madame, honorable Madame la vice-première ministre, est de savoir comment on prononce mon nom. Et je l'ai dit, c'est un nom très difficile. Ça va nous prendre 1 heure pour pouvoir l'apprendre. Je l'ai dit, écoute, dis Monsieur Albert, ça va être bon. Et tout le monde va excuser. Je suis content, très content d'être ici pour diverses raisons. La première des raisons, c'est effectivement voir une salle aussi comble et aussi un grand nombre de personnes qui suivent cet événement à distance. Je suis aussi content que nous avons connu des moments très difficiles avec la COVID-19. Je me rappelle au début de la COVID-19, on se demandait qu'est-ce qu'on allait devenir, surtout en éducation. Alors, nous retrouver ici, après la COVID, après des moments extrêmement difficiles, pour moi, c'est un moment de gloire, de mes remerciements que l'on puisse, encore une fois, interagir physiquement. Même si certains ne peuvent pas être présents, mais il y a toujours la technologie qui est là. Donc, je ne peux que commencer par remercier le pays qui nous reçoit aujourd'hui. Et c'est l'île Maurice, représentée ici par l'honorable Madame Leela Devi Duncan, quelqu'un qui a beaucoup contribué à l'ADEA, beaucoup. Non seulement en tant que ministre, mais quelqu'un qui croit beaucoup à l'éducation et à la coopération entre les pays africains. Madame la vice-première ministre, recevez tous nos remerciements. Au nom de l'ADEA, au nom de tout le pays. L'ADEA avait d'abord, avant la triennale, ce qu'on appelait la biennale. L'île Maurice avait organisé la biennale, c'était en 2003. Et depuis 2012, nous avons introduit, en tant qu'ADEA, je dis nous avons parce que j'étais à l'époque ministre dans mon pays, il y a eu la triennale. Donc si vous comptez bien, ça fait 19 ans. Après 19 ans qu'on se retrouve encore à l'île Maurice. Et c'est aussi une gloire et un remerciement pour le pays qui nous héberge aujourd'hui. Nous sommes en train de lancer la 3e triennale aujourd'hui, après celle qui a eu lieu à Ouagadougou en 2012, à Dakar en 2017 et aujourd'hui 2022 ici à l'île Maurice. Ce qui est intéressant, c'est que j'ai vu dans la salle, incluant les membres du ministère de l'Éducation de l'île Maurice, qui étaient à la triennale de 2012. Ils sont encore ici. Et je les remercie beaucoup du soutien qu'ils continuent à apporter en tant que membres de la famille de l'éducation. Permettez-moi donc de vous exprimer encore une fois, chers participants de tous bords, notre joie de vous retrouver encore ici. La raison d'être ici, c'est parce que vous croyez encore, malgré les difficultés que nous sommes en train de traverser dans l'éducation, vous croyez encore des opportunités qui peuvent changer la donne que nous avons aujourd'hui. Et cela ne peut se faire que grâce au partenariat. Nous sommes ici parce que nous croyons au partenariat. Le partenariat entre pays et organisations, le partenariat entre les organisations de développement qui sont beaucoup ici, je vais les citer à un certain moment, et surtout cette capacité de mutualiser entre les pays. Nous sommes en train de parler de s'investir dans un projet immense de création d'un marché unique africain. Et cela, bien sûr, ne peut se réaliser que grâce à la coopération, en commençant par l'éducation. Parce que ce que nous sommes en train de dire, c'est que demain, un jeune de Malawi qui termine les études et qui veut travailler, il faut lui permettre d'aller travailler en Côte d'Ivoire. Il y a des opportunités. Nous voulons qu'une jeune Tunisienne puisse se déplacer en Afrique sans avoir de barrière parce que son curriculum, son programme qu'il a suivi d'éducation n'est pas reconnu. Nous voulons à ce que l'éducation en Afrique soit le moteur de coopération et d'échange entre les pays. Voici une bonne raison d'organiser une réunion aujourd'hui, telle que la triennale. La triennale de cette année, comme mes prédécesseurs l'ont dit, nous a pour objectif et surtout pour but d'essayer de réfléchir sur tout ce que nous avons connu pendant la période de la COVID-19. Nous avions déjà des problèmes avant la COVID-19. Et au moment de la COVID-19, ces problèmes se sont encore accélérés. Il nous a été très difficile de même continuer à offrir l'éducation telle que nous le faisions. Mais ce que je pense que nous avons appris, d'abord que c'est possible de fermer les écoles, chose qui n'avait jamais existé auparavant, du moins pour notre génération. Ça veut dire que demain, nous allons nous retrouver dans une situation où on doit fermer l'école. Et ça a permis aux gens de réfléchir autrement. Comment garantir la poursuite de l'enseignement dans des moments de crise? Et ce que nous avons mis en avant pour cette triennale, c'est de réfléchir maintenant comment créer des systèmes d'éducation résilients, afin que si on se retrouve encore une fois dans une crise, il n'y ait plus d'excuses, qu'on puisse continuer l'éducation, parce qu'on croit beaucoup que l'éducation ne peut s'arrêter en aucun moment. Arrêter l'éducation, c'est comme arrêter la vie. Donc c'est ça, pour moi, le message important que nous allons mettre en avant. À ce stade, je vais d'abord reconnaître les ministres qui sont ici. Donc je vais commencer par la ministre de la Gambie, Madame Claudiana Ayo Kole. Merci beaucoup à Madame la ministre d'être venue à cette réunion. Vous pouvez l'applaudir. Elle est en charge de l'enseignement de base et c'est quelqu'un qui a beaucoup contribué, qui continue à contribuer à ce que nous puissions mutualiser nos efforts. Je vais poursuivre par le ministre de la Mauritanie, M. Mamadou Niang. Il est ministre de l'Emploi et de la Formation professionnelle. Monsieur le ministre. Je vais ensuite parler de la ministre de la Côte d'Ivoire, Mme Mariatou Koné. Mariatou n'est pas encore là? Elle est ici, je ne sais pas, peut-être qu'elle n'est pas encore venue, mais elle est ici. Ensuite, bien sûr, nous avons déjà parlé de la ministre de l'Ouganda en responsable des sciences, technologies et innovations, Madame Dr Monica Musenero. Merci beaucoup d'être ici. Il y a une deuxième ministre de l'Ouganda, Madame Joyce Moriku Kadou. Merci, Madame la ministre, d'être ici. Nous avons la ministre du Malawi, Madame Agnes Makonda Ridley. Merci beaucoup d'être venue. Nous avons la ministre du Madagascar, Madame Vavitsara Gabriela. Elle est aussi ministre de l'enseignement technique et de la formation professionnelle. Merci beaucoup d'être là. Nous avons le ministre du Ghana, et ministre adjoint, M. Fojour John Tim. Merci, monsieur le ministre, d'être là. Thank you. Nous avons la ministre du Rwanda, Dr Valentine Ouamaria. Merci, Madame la ministre, d'être présente. Nous espérons que le ministre adjoint du Zimbabwe, qui a eu des difficultés de vol, mais il arrive cet après-midi. Donc, on peut applaudir M. Moyo. Il a fait beaucoup d'efforts pour être présent. Nous avons bien sûr des délégations, comme on l'a dit, des délégations ministérielles, des ministres qui n'ont pas pu venir. Nous avons une délégation de l'Afrique du Sud qui est là. Nous avons une délégation de la Côte d'Ivoire pour le ministère de l'Enseignement supérieur et la Recherche scientifique, qui sont là, je les vois bien. Merci d'être là. Nous avons d'autres délégations qui sont représentées ici, différents gouvernements, comme le Kenya, par exemple. Il y a une grande délégation kenyane. Bonjour, monsieur et madame représentant le ministère de l'Éducation du Kenya. Donc, nous avons pas mal de délégations ici. Je voulais tous les remercier d'être présents ici. Je vais citer un certain nombre de représentants des organisations internationales. S'il y a un oubli, je vous prie de m'en excuser. Je vais bien sûr commencer par l'UNESCO. La directrice adjointe, générale adjointe en charge de l'éducation n'a pas pu venir, mais il a envoyé son directeur, M. Boren. M. Boren, merci beaucoup d'être là. Nous avons la représentante du Forum mondial pour l'éducation, Mme Margarita, qui est là actuellement l'adjointe au président du Forum. Est-ce que Margarita est là? Oh, elle est très très loin. Elle est très très loin. Merci d'être là. Nous avons Mme Titia Brede, qui est la directrice générale de NOFIC. Merci d'être venue. J'ai été impressionné par votre français hier soir. Elle vient de la Hollande. Nous avons le docteur Obi. Obi était là, est là. Obi, il est le responsable de Human Capital Africa. Nous avons le professeur Wisdom Tete, qui est le Deputy Vice-Chancellor de l'Université de Toronto. Est-ce que Tete est ici? Donc, il est déjà dans le groupe. Nous avons Mme Martha Firi, qui est de la Banque africaine de développement, et sa délégation. Ils sont aussi ici. Nous avons le docteur Benjamin Paipa, qui est le directeur du Global Education à la fondation Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Alors, nous avons des délégations aussi qui viennent de l'Union européenne, du gouvernement allemand, l'organisation GIZ. Nous avons pas mal d'autres délégations. Je m'excuse si je ne suis pas en mesure de pouvoir tous les citer. Alors, je reviens sur quelque chose d'important avant de clôturer mon discours de bienvenue. La plupart d'entre nous étaient à New York pour le sommet mondial sur la transformation de l'éducation. Et je me rappelle, on a eu des sessions et lors de mon intervention, je les ai dit que ma préoccupation était la suivante, c'est que chaque fois qu'on se rencontre dans ces sommets importants, on fait des déclarations. Les sommets, c'est faire des déclarations, des grandes déclarations. Et le problème, c'est toujours, on fait des déclarations et 5 ans, on se retrouve pour faire encore des déclarations. Donc ce que je disais comme préoccupation, c'est de dire, est-ce qu'il est possible de transformer ces déclarations en action? Et donc, si vous analysez bien le programme que nous avons pendant les 2 jours, l'importance que nous voulons mettre en avant, c'est comment traduire ces déclarations en action, ensemble. Qu'est-ce que nous pouvons faire ensemble pour améliorer l'éducation et la formation en Afrique? Nous avons 4 thèmes importants sur lesquels nous allons discuter. Il y a d'abord l'impact de la COVID-19, c'est normal, on ne peut pas laisser les choses comme ça, on va discuter de la COVID-19. Comment avons-nous travaillé pendant cette période de Covid pour en sortir et continuer l'éducation? Qu'est-ce que nous avons appris de la Covid? Qu'est-ce que nous devons faire différemment si jamais on se retrouvait dans cette crise? Deuxièmement, c'est l'enseignement fondamental. Vous avez tous vu les statistiques. Elles ne sont pas du tout bonnes. Ce que nous prévoyons avoir terminé dans 2030, nous sommes très en arrière. Il y a des raisons pour ça. Mais ce que je disais aussi dans ces réunions, chaque fois on met toujours en avant le manque de ressources financières. Les ressources financières sont une chose. Mais avant d'en parler, qu'est-ce que nous prévoyons faire? Je me rappelle, quand j'étais au gouvernement, le président aimait nous dire, chaque fois que vous mettez en avant d'abord les ressources financières, c'est que vous êtes en train de trouver des excuses. Avant de parler des ressources financières, il faut d'abord savoir qu'est-ce que vous voulez faire. Et les ressources viennent après. Donc, l'enseignement fondamental est capital et nous devons tout faire pour essayer d'améliorer la façon de travailler et surtout de travailler ensemble. Quelqu'un vient de me rappeler que j'ai oublié, évidemment je savais que j'allais oublier quelqu'un, un partenaire très important, le directeur de la Banque islamique de développement, Monsieur Idrissa, mes excuses Mathieu, mes excuses. Donc, l'enseignement fondamental, c'est une autre discussion qui va se faire et j'étais très content de constater hier pendant les discussions que la plupart des sessions concernaient justement le travail qui est en train d'être fait, les recherches qui ont été faites, les innovations qui ont été faites. La question, c'est toujours comment traduire ces innovations en action pour qu'ils nous aident à améliorer l'offre de l'enseignement fondamental. L'autre point qu'on va discuter, c'est justement l'enseignement technique et la formation professionnelle. Comment faire en sorte que ce que nous enseignons puisse répondre aux besoins du marché? Dans un monde qui est dynamique, où la technologie est en train de prendre de l'importance, où les problèmes climatiques sont en train de jouer un rôle important et influencer l'économie, dans cette crise multidimensionnelle, comment garantir que nous offrons des formations de qualité et qui répondent aux besoins du marché? Et surtout pour nos jeunes, parce que comme quelqu'un disait, si on n'arrive pas à former ces jeunes pour qu'ils trouvent de l'emploi, ils vont revenir sur nous. Donc, ça, c'est aussi un point important qui va être discuté. Et enfin, c'est l'enseignement supérieur et la recherche scientifique. Comment garantir que l'enseignement supérieur réponde aux besoins du continent? Comment réimaginer l'enseignement supérieur en Afrique pour qu'il soit le moteur du développement? Donc, ce sont les 4 points importants qui vont être discutés pendant les 2 jours qui suivent. Bien sûr, il y a des sujets transversaux, comme toujours, qui touchent à chacun de ces points. Il y a la question de données fiables. Nous savons qu'on ne peut rien faire si on n'a pas de données fiables. Il y a le problème d'accès et d'équité. Et on l'a bien vu dans les recherches qui ont été faites, le nombre de jeunes filles qui n'ont pas pu continuer l'école pendant cette période de Covid. Et d'autres problèmes, les problèmes de personnes handicapées. Donc, comment faire à ce qu'on les intègre dans notre éducation? Et enfin, il y a la question de la technologie. Nous avons vu combien la technologie a été importante pendant cette période de Covid. Comment faire que ça soit systématique? Il ne faudra pas attendre encore une crise pour penser à la technologie. Comment intégrer la technologie d'une manière efficiente pour pouvoir travailler et améliorer nos systèmes éducatifs? Voilà en bref les sujets qui vont être abordés. Je reconnais la ministre de la Côte d'Ivoire, Mme Mariatou Koné. Merci d'être venue, Madame la ministre. Donc, pour terminer, je voulais vous encourager, parce que nous sommes ici pour discuter, pour apporter des solutions. Les problèmes, nous les connaissons tous. On ne va pas s'attarder aux problèmes. Nous sommes ici pour échanger, pour apporter des solutions. Nous sommes ici pour voir dans quelle mesure nous pouvons créer plus de partenariats entre nous, pour compléter les uns des autres. Donc, je vous encourage à participer, à contribuer, à créer des opportunités pour le partenariat. Donc, pour terminer, j'aimerais vous remercier encore une fois, d'abord la vice-première ministre, pour tout l'effort qu'elle a fait pour accueillir cette réunion, et son équipe incroyable. J'ai oublié de parler ils appellent ça la clusters, members of the clusters. Ils ont fait un travail formidable, et permettez-moi de vous remercier beaucoup pour le travail qui a été fait. Et enfin, je vous remercie tous. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mr. Albert Sengiyumba, Executive Secretary for your passion in making this triennial a reality and a success. Ladies and gentlemen, education starts with youth. They are the leaders of tomorrow. To remind us of this, we have with us today members of a local group founded in 1982 as a support group for vulnerable children. This organization has, over time, transformed to provide opportunities for children to express themselves through free speech, storytelling, play, music, and various other creative ways. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage members of the local group ADEA.
So we are very happy to be with you. Welcome, dear delegates, welcome. We are talking today about COVID, and one of the important tools that we had during the pandemic was our mother tongue, the Mauritian Creole language, which helped us to be resilient, which helped us to communicate effectively. And I'd like to share something with you. In Mauritius, when we greet people, we say, bonjour, qui manière? Will you try it? Oh, perfect. And then the response is correct. Right, okay, I'll do it again. Bonjour, qui manière? Ah, fantastic. Now you respond correct. Bonjour, qui manière? Super. Now we can start with some good music.
So it's our great pleasure. It's an honor for us to have been invited, and we wish to extend a really heartfelt thanks to the Ministry of Education of Mauritius, which has deemed it interesting enough to invite us. And the first item that we are going to interpret today has to do with, indeed, the COVID. Because COVID has played us really dirty trick. But then we had to show resilience, and we did do that. And mothers of children in our organization, when we met, they started to talk about it. And they expressed themselves in so wonderful words that the musicality of it allowed us to create and recreate many things. So one of those songs would go by everywhere we go. They'll just check our temperature. What is it all about? So we did have to handle that situation, and culture allowed us to do that perfectly well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This second song is about a problem that many millions of people face on Earth. It's about the scarcity of water. And one way that our elders were tackling it was through culture once again. This is a very, very popular song in the Bhojpuri language, and it says that there's no water. It goes like, Pani naiba. Pani naiba means no water. We would like you to sing with us, sing along with us. Will you try it? Okay, it goes like, Chengen mengen pani bale, and then you say pani naiba, right? Chengen mengen pani bale. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I think we can applaud them. Perfect. So, where do we have problems of water in Africa, or from you delegates? Will you tell me? Uruguay? Everywhere? Uruguay, Côte d'Ivoire, Madagascar, Mauritius? In Rodrigues, yes? Over there? Mauritania, okay, it's going to be a long, long song, but we'll try to keep it short, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go then,
Yeah.
Mauritanie, Côte d'Ivoire, Rodrigues, Madagascar. All right? Pani naiba?
Yeah. We just need to check something with the bass, which is not on, I think. Please.
This is live and direct, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start. Yeah, you can clap with us.
Bolo!
Megan, Megan, Pani Bale, Pani Neighbor.
Merci beaucoup. On va vous faire maintenant un morceau de Ravan, a drumming song, so that you can continue on the conference. We wish you many nice working sessions and many a good future for ADEA. Thank you very much for having us.
Merci pour cette merveilleuse performance qui a fait battre nos cœurs et bouger nos pieds pour nous rappeler que nous sommes à Maurice. Mesdames et messieurs, cette triennale est le résultat du soutien de partenaires mondiaux. À cet effet, nous aimerions vous présenter les 2 premiers messages de solidarité de nos partenaires. Le premier est celui du président de la division de la croissance et des opportunités mondiales de la Fondation Bill et Melinda Gates, M. Rogers Voorhees. La deuxième vidéo sera celui de Mme Jutta Urpilainen, commissaire aux partenariats internationaux de l'Union européenne.
Sous vos applaudissements, s'il vous plaît.
The Right Honorable Prime Minister of Mauritius, the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers from African countries, distinguished representatives and participants, thank you for inviting me to take part in this important event. At the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we are guided by the belief that everyone deserves to live a healthy and productive life. For many years now, our work has thus been focused on vital, sustainable development goals like improving global health, ending hunger and malnutrition, and achieving gender equality. We have recently expanded our work in global education because we know that if the world does not ensure the education of its children, in particular, the foundational skills of reading and math, we will not be able to break intergenerational cycles of poverty and inequality. I have 2 daughters, both of whom did their primary school in Kitwe and Lilongwe. When they first started to read, I was thrilled to see a whole new world opening up to them, new stories and ideas, and greater understanding of themselves and the world. As a parent and as a development professional, it is devastating to know that as a result of the pandemic, a whole generation of children is still waiting to have these doors open to them. COVID has set us all back. In addition to the overwhelming loss of life and livelihood, it has also been the worst education crisis in history. The recent reading panel report in South Africa showed that an average 10-year-old in 2021 knows less than the average 9-year-old did in 2019. And 90% of children in sub-Saharan Africa are not able to read a simple passage with understanding by the age of 10. The Born to Learn Spotlight Report, launched today by UNESCO, the African Union, and ADEA, calls for us all to focus our efforts to address this crisis by prioritizing the basic skills of reading and math in primary school. The good news is that we know how to teach reading and math. Research from this continent shows that children learn best when taught with a structured approach that leverages phonics and is targeted at their level. We also know from successful programs like Tusome in Kenya that progress at scale is possible when teachers are supported to use these best practices. We also know that we must measure what matters, including the specific sub-skills that ensure children are reading with understanding. It's encouraging that partners like the UNESCO Institute for Statistics are now offering new methodologies to support improved national assessment systems measuring these essential skills. I'm also inspired to see that some countries are already taking up this challenge and committing to action. President Bio of Sierra Leone led the way at the Transforming Education Summit last month in New York, and President Ramaphosa of South Africa has committed that by 2030, all children must be able to read with meaning by age 10. Several countries have also been instrumental in the preparation of the foundational literacy and numeracy track for this conference. And civil society organizations like Human Capital Africa and the PAL Network are championing efforts to put foundational learning on the agenda at the global and national levels. This triennial is an important opportunity to come together to share learnings on evidence-based solutions, to take action to scale these efforts, and to reinforce our collective commitments to improving reading and math outcomes for all children in Africa. Thank you, and I wish you fruitful discussions in the days ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a former teacher, I passionately support the right for every child and young person to a quality education. Today, far too many young people are missing out, especially after the pandemic and especially in Africa. 1 month ago, I met many of you at the Transforming Education Summit in New York. We co-organized an important special event on education in Africa. The EU fully supports the Declaration on Transforming Education in Africa and the commitments made by the EU member states. At the EU-AU summit in February, leaders from both continents agreed that education is one of the pillars of our renewed partnership in the context of our Global Gateway strategy. Since then, we have been strengthening our collaboration. We have significantly increased our funding to education globally. We are developing a 100 million euro regional teacher training program. It incorporates the latest digital and green innovations in teaching. I intend to launch the initiative in Africa in January. We are investing 500 million euros in vocational education and skills development. We are contributing 970 million euros to support transformative higher education and mobility opportunities. And we are fostering inclusive learning opportunities for young people in Africa and between Africa and Europe. We are working to engage more girls and other marginalized groups. So we invest more, we invest better, and leave no one behind. Dear friends, Africa has incredible potential to lead the global transition towards a more sustainable, green, and digital connected future. But this can only happen if young Africans are given a chance to acquire the right skills.
Ladies and gentlemen, we had such a beautiful song and dance this morning. Can I request you for a bigger round of applause to recognize the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the European Union supports to education cause. Thank you. The next speaker, dear participant, is Ms. Titia Brede, the CEO of NUFIC. NUFIC is a Dutch foundation for internationalization in education. In its partnership with the government of the Netherlands, it promotes students' acquisition of skills and international competencies, whether in Netherlands or abroad. NUFIC is a bridge connecting students across borders to prepare them for the labor market of the future. Let's welcome on stage Ms. Titia Brede.
Your Excellencies, honored guests, esteemed colleagues, allow me to start by expressing my heartfelt appreciation for extending the honor and the invitation to join you here at the ADEA Triennale. I really want to thank you and also I feel very honored to be here, and a special thank you for the organizing committees, the African Development Bank, the government of Mauritius, and my fellow representatives. It is only through combined efforts that all of you gathered here today are able to share and to make a knowledge collaboration. And we need that for the future generations who have been here this morning and who are out there in their schools, in the fields, wanting education. This is a call to action. I agree totally with ADEA. We have to start today. At NAFIC, as said by the professor, we believe that education is for everyone. Everyone who is born has a right to get education and to be the person he or she wants to be. And it is a role in the future society that he or she has to play. And none of this is possible without learning. At the most basic level, regardless of the method of learning, formal or informal, it starts with the transfer of knowledge from one person to the other. The challenges we face together are enormous. It's been the topic of this morning all day and all the days before. The Sustainable Development Goals loom on the horizon, and all of us here know that social and environmental economic challenges cannot be solved in isolation. We need each other. So why not face the challenges together? I envision this. The first level is between countries, regions and continents. Triangular cooperation is rooted in innovation and collaboration, and always geared towards addressing issues by sharing experiences, knowledges and networks. That's why I'm so glad that this ADEA Triennale is being organized. It means that knowing each other and knowing also the family stories and what our children are doing is a bridge for the future. The second level is between civil society, the private sector, and public policy efforts. Aligning education with labor markets, needs and social developments is crucial when working towards stable society and a prosperous economy. Systemic change can simply not be realized without a systems approach. I'm very glad that all the ministers have shown their respect and came here, because it is together that we can serve the world and give a future generation the education they need. And the third and final level, therefore, is us. The world needs us. We have had the challenge to stand here and to be in this room, and it is on us that the future generations depend. Let me give you some examples of that it works. There is an ongoing COVID pandemic, it's been said, but there's also innovation inside the COVID pandemic. New apps, portals, MOOCs, digital projects, they have all started. And when I talk to youth and to children, they are into digitalization. It's well known for them, and they really love it. So let's go on with this path. It's also about adaptive learning. Learning is not always in a classroom, not always with a teacher. It can be in your family. It can be on the route from one way to the other. It can be from an older person. Let's also adapt to informal learning as one of the pathways to formal learning. It's also up to us to make that possible. Education cannot wait. It cannot be halted. So together we are implementing the future generation's success. The message here is a tailored approach wherever possible. Speaking of innovation, let's not conflate that with technical progress. In the field of education, all of us know there are many sides to innovation. By all means, it's a spectrum of possibilities. Let's apply them in ways that further our education prowess. An example could be our approach to scholarships for scientific research, such as the NRF program currently rolled out in South Africa. It's been a chance for many. And let's see if applied science can leapfrog on their efforts. The linkages are there on institutional level, and let's integrate them on a policy level also. I was talking to my neighbor on this, and I think the Mauritian government is doing just this. I really applaud this. Think local and act global. It's an example of what we as NAFIC do in 37 countries as a small Dutch foundation, and we in this room have all the networks that are needed for this innovation and this challenge. Also, training, technical skills are very, very important in the future. Let me give an example of one of the projects we have done together with African and Dutch organizations. It was in collaboration with the Ethiopian Midwives Association that the Amsterdam-based Health E Foundation worked together, and 4 collaborating universities in Addis Ababa, Jimma, Debre Beran, and Wolkait. They together made a new program for midwives, and it is also with the possibilities of the labor market combined with this project that is one of the examples of the future. And so let me end with this. I think it's a promise for a better future if you read the echo of the 7 aspirations of the African Union's agenda of 2063. And let me remind us, that's only 30 years from now. So we really have to leap forward. And with these words from the African Union, I would really like to close and give you all my heartiest call to action with everything you've got in you. Here we go. Transforming Africa to the global powerhouse of the future needs an approach that embodies our desire for shared prosperity and well-being, for unity and integration, for a continent of free citizens and expanded horizons, where the full potential of women and youth are realized, and with freedom for fear, disease and want, these responsibilities befall on all of us. Thank you.
Merci à Madame Titia Brédé d'avoir souligné l'importance de la collaboration et du partenariat pour faire avancer le progrès sur l'éducation. Mesdames et Messieurs, les 2 messages de solidarité suivants proviennent de 2 autres partenaires proches de l'ADEA, et le premier est l'honorable Madame Svenja Schulz, ministre fédérale de la coopération économique et du développement en Allemagne. Et la deuxième vidéo sera celle de la directrice générale adjointe pour l'éducation de l'UNESCO, Madame Stefania Giannini.
Good morning. Education is a human right, and it is an investment in the future. Well-educated people are in a better position to benefit from social and economic development, and this benefits everyone. Equality, gender equality is a human right. We want to raise awareness of this fact because strong women make strong societies. When I become development minister, I resolved to implement a feminist development policy together with our partners. For the education sector, this means that first, we are reducing gender-specific barriers so that all children and young people can exercise their right to education. And second, we use education to overcome harmful gender norms and the resulting practices such as early marriage. We want to change discriminatory structures and make education and labor market policies gender transformative. One example is the project entitled Support for South Sudanese Refugees and Host Communities in Uganda. It supports women and girls who train for jobs that are not traditionally women's jobs. As part of the G7 presidency, Germany successfully pushed for the G7 countries to make gender transformative education a new focus of their cooperation on education. This includes digital skills. The e-Skill for Girls initiative has already reached 60,000 women and girls worldwide. For example, advice has been provided to vocational training institutions in Ghana on how to develop gender-responsive curricula on information and communication technologies. Primary education is the foundation of all later learning, and that is why we support the International Education Fund's Global Partnership for Education and Education Cannot Wait. Through the Gender at the Center initiative of the United Nations Girls' Education Initiative, we support girls' education in sub-Saharan Africa. We all know that in the period up to 2035, Africa will need some 25 million jobs a year for people who are newly entering the labor market. In that regard, quality vocational training and practice-oriented higher education will be crucial. And that is why we support scholarship and alumni programs, partnership between higher education institutions, and efforts to improve the management of higher education facilities. Vocational training is an important part of the portfolio of Germany's development cooperation. Among other things, we have put the focus on fostering youth employment in Africa. We are engaged in successful cooperation with our African partners in this field, including ADEA, the African Union, and the African Development Bank. Africa will remain a focus of Germany's development cooperation. The ADEA Triennial is helping to develop answers to the challenges of our times. Let us continue to combine our forces to provide quality education for all.
Honorable Prime Minister of Mauritius, dear Executive Secretary of ADEA, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to address the opening of this triennial ADEA, which I commend the government of Mauritius for co-hosting. Well, we all know that this continent and the world, of course, have dramatically changed since your last meeting 5 years ago already. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has carried devastating impacts compounded by the multiple crises: climate change, rising food and energy prices, the specter of a global recession. It's setting back progress made over decades on all fronts, widening inequalities and pushing millions into extreme poverty and hunger. However, my message today is a bit different. My message today is about hope. It's about hope because we know the course to change, the course to transform, the course to go beyond these multiple crises. This is how we have to work together, to move ahead together. It's about investing more and investing better in education. It's about changing the course of our way to learn and teach. Since your last meeting, UNESCO has set the ground for this. As you know, we released an important pioneering publication, The Futures of Education, 3 years ago, which actually outline a new social contract for education to reimagine more sustainable and peaceful futures together. And then other big events, our world conferences this year on education for sustainable development, last year in Berlin, but also higher education in Barcelona this year, adult learning, and next month, the early childhood care and education, respectively in Marrakesh, Morocco, and Tashkent in Uzbekistan. All these events, all these big movements we are building for education are mobilizing governments and all partners around this notion of transformation. And our new strategy on Tibet, among other important topics UNESCO is working on, aspires to support countries and giving children, providing youth and adults with the right skills in demand. Another important initiative I want to mention is Campus Africa. Campus Africa is about having a better connection between African universities and the rest of the world. It's about supporting infrastructures for knowledge and research in the continent. And the program of your meeting, of this triennial, takes this wide angle, this wide lens, which is necessary today to really harness the power of education and the power of research and science. The United Nations Transforming Education Summit, a real unprecedented initiative led by the Secretary General himself, as you know all, provides the political capital we need today to change the course. And it also generated a bottom-up process, which is about an unprecedented mobilization of all countries of the world around the national consultations and providing now national commitments to transform education. It's about some 133 countries, including 46 from Africa, from your continent. And this is about really acceleration of SDG 4. This is about changing the system of SDGs and putting education on top of the priorities for the next decade. Well, all we are doing now is about also addressing the big issue of inequalities. Inequalities are actually increasing all over the world, and equity is the starting point for all transformation. It calls for new policies, policies that address all barriers, keeping children out of school, or keeping children not to learn as they should be. And it's about integrating responses which can encompass different sectors, which traditionally were separated, and talking and taking decisions in different rooms: health and nutrition, environment, digital transformation. All these different sectors have a role to play, and we want to valorize as much as possible a true intersectorial approach, and UNESCO is the right organization which can do that. So this is the message of the joint continental education strategy for Africa as well, and this is the first of its kind. Our Spotlight Initiative report that will also be released here in Mauritius, Born to Learn, puts a specific focus on foundational learning in Africa, which is one of the most important spotlight initiatives coming from the TESS, the Transforming Education Summit. And it's also resonated with a call to action by 6 partners, including UNESCO, made in New York a few weeks ago. I really support the collaboration with the African Union and ADEA on these 2 assets. Bon, Excellence, plus que jamais, moi je pense que le partenariat et la solidarité, ces nouveaux concepts de solidarité, sont vraiment les ingrédients essentiels toujours pour tenir nos engagements et pour transformer la société comme il faut. Les appels à l'action lancés lors du sommet par des coalitions de partenaires dans des domaines critiques ont le potentiel aujourd'hui d'accélérer le progrès et la transformation. Moi, je vous encourage, vous tous, les États membres, mais aussi les partenaires présents, à les rejoindre. Le comité de pilotage de haut niveau sur l'ODD 4, co-présidé par l'UNESCO et la Sierra Leone, est chargé par le secrétaire général d'assurer un suivi efficace du sommet. Il s'agit de traduire tous les engagements que les États membres ont pris en actions concrètes. Et il s'agit d'avoir des concrètes mesures pour évaluer les progrès faits. La jeunesse, surtout. La jeunesse africaine porte en elle l'avenir. Elle doit aussi avoir une voix active, une voix proactive dans la transformation de l'éducation pour construire l'Afrique que nous voulons. Un continent où tous les talents humains peuvent s'épanouir, un continent où tous les jeunes peuvent trouver vraiment les moyens d'avoir un futur meilleur. Je vous souhaite une réunion constructive, très riche et un apprentissage mutuel et je vous remercie beaucoup pour cette opportunité.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is a believer in science education. She actively promotes the use of technology and innovation as a means for a better Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage the Honorable Dr. Monica Musenero, the Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Uganda, and also the Chairperson of the African Union Specialized Technical Committee for Education, Science, Technology and Innovation. Honorable Minister, welcome.
The Honorable Vice Prime Minister, Mauritius, the Honorable Ministers from different African governments, the Executive Secretary of ADEA, all our beloved partners and leaders and delegations that are present here, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be here today. This is my first ADEA meeting, although I have had online meetings, courtesy of COVID. I would like to appreciate the government of Mauritius. This is my first time to come to Mauritius, and I promise I'll be back again. Ladies and gentlemen, as chair of the STC, I've had an experience over the past years to interact with a lot of education on the African continent, and we have held several meetings with many ministers. And I want also to appreciate all the gestures and all the commitments and investments that we have seen, and the concern and focus on transforming African education. Since there are so many people focusing on interventions, I'm going to take a slightly different focus. The purpose and focus for which our education system is designed. The theme for the triennial is reflecting on the impact of COVID on Africa's education systems and how to build resilience to sustain the development of skills for the continent. And being a public health professional, but also being involved with education, especially the higher education institutions, I have watched firsthand COVID achieve what many things had failed to achieve. Put education systems to a standstill. We all stopped. It was something unimaginable before. And while this was very, very disruptive and caused worldwide concern, I want us to ponder on an issue. On the other coin of COVID achieving this, What can we stop and re-examine? And I want to ask a few questions. Was our education system serving Africa before COVID? Were we having massively employed people coming out of the education system? Is it possible that COVID has caused us to pause and ask ourselves the relevant questions? Why isn't education serving Africa? When we focus on those who are missing education, we miss those who are coming out of education, because we can learn from both ends. Are those who are coming out of the education system finding employment? Are they contributing to the development of their countries? Are they developing industrial value chains which are employing people? Let's not miss this lesson, to pause during this meeting and say, while we are looking at the head of the coin of COVID, let's also look at the tail. What can we re-engineer in the foundations of education so that the post-COVID education system provides the same promise education provides for children on the rest of the continent? Right now, ladies and gentlemen, we have people on this continent starving. They can't meet food needs. In my country right now, we are battling Ebola, a disease which has been with us for close to a century. And we know it, and we haven't found those solutions. Right now, massively, both educated and uneducated Africans die, or they are boarding planes to go and do menial jobs outside the continent. Can we use the opportunity provided by this COVID to reimagine and rethink how we can have a more effective education system for the continent? I would like to briefly articulate a few things which may be responsible for an education system which we invest in heavily, both countries and partners, and yet it has not driven prosperity on the continent. What is the problem? The problem is in the purpose for which the current education systems were established. The first purpose, most of our education systems were established to bring literacy to the locals so that they could be assistants, first to the missionaries as they spread the gospels from the holy books, and second also to support as clerks and assistants to professionals to achieve certain objectives. Before contact with the Western world, Africa had an end-to-end education system. We had a system which supported boys and girls to learn vocation, to learn conservation of nature, to learn value addition to whatever they had, and to pass on the same to the next generation. However, with the contact with the Europeans as coming as missionaries, something was introduced. Our education system did not have oral transmission. It did not have an alphabet. With the coming of the missionaries and the colonialists, there was need for people to learn alphabet so that they can read the standardized messages. So there was need for massive health challenge to address the massive health challenges. So we educated assistants to the healthcare professionals. We had a need for teaching, so we established PTCs and training institutions to teach people how to read the alphabet. We had needed technical assistance. Our university, the biggest university in Uganda, Makerere University was started as a technical institution to produce survey assistants so that the colonialists could survey the land. They needed assistance to carry their tools. And as things progressed, they introduced more and more components to the education system. Now, you may wonder why I am laboring with all this. Because post-independence, who are the people who took over education? The products of the clerks and the assistant education training system. Yes, they are the ones who took over. They never understood how you design a purposeful education system. And this same thing has been propagated to us. We are maybe several generations from then. So we tried to advance education by bettering. So we turned in training programs for training assistants, and we added prestige to them, making them diplomas, making them degrees. And moreover, this education system was partial. It was to produce raw materials, do administration here, and deliver the materials to industrial value chains off the continent. Now, post-independence, and as time passed, Africa went through a bit of chaos, but the education systems struggled. But then, we continued with the same. After decades, the industrial value chains which used to take our raw materials are no longer existent. And here we are, trying to do better, to do more better, more of the same thing, which produces people who cannot build an industrial value chain to create jobs. So as we look at COVID, how can we take advantage of this? How can we use this meeting to think in addition to all the interventions that we are giving? Can we go a little bit deeper and look at the foundations? Why is it that a professor in an African university with a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a PhD, a postdoc cannot produce a single item? Is it being educated, which is the problem? Or is it the purpose and structure of education, which is the problem? In the current context of technologically disruptive systems and rapidly changing geopolitics, African planners are often at a loss because many cannot cope with the rapid change. I don't know whether other countries developed education or other continents developed education with so many projects and trials. Definitely Africa has a multitude of them. The challenge is that we seem to be rotating in the same place. We seem to be rotating, and if we miss the opportunity COVID has afforded us, then we are going to enter a long haul, and then the God above will again bring another thing to force us so that we can begin to do something. So we keep declaring Africa, the Africa we want, 2063 agenda. And as the Executive Secretary mentioned, we keep making declarations. The issue is we don't know what to do. We don't know how to change this system. Fellow leaders, while it is exciting that we are looking at cutting-edge methodologies and tools, I am a bit troubled that we are again emphasizing educating our children for industrial value chains which don't exist on the continent. Yes, we can help children to learn to read better English or to learn literacy so that they do what? There are no jobs. There are no jobs. That's the reality of Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, we should indeed be concerned that COVID disrupted an effective system, because an ineffective system, because we must be ready to replace it. The pandemic has indeed availed an opportunity to stop an aberrant and, to be candid, destructive education system. We should grab the opportunity and design for Africa an effective human capital development system. And this is what I would call our partners to support us. Can we go back to the drawing board? Such a system would give learners an opportunity to discover, create, innovate, socialize, and take care of society and nature right from the very beginning. It would enable Africa to develop relevant and complete industrial value chains based on her rich heritage of natural resources as well as technology. I am against taking Legos to villages where children cannot relate where Legos come from, the Lego blocks, because then they can't relate it to their natural environment. We should ask fundamental questions such as, is indeed literacy at 10 years the most important measure of human capital development? Could there be more and possibly better measures? Where are the industrial value chains for which we are educating our children? Similar to Western education, pre-colonial African education system molded a child such that by the time of adulthood, 18 years, an individual was mature physically, psychologically, spiritually, mentally, vocationally, and technically. But the current education system isolates younger people from society, locks them into institutions from a very early age, preparing them for a world of work which is non-existent. By the time the children emerge, often past 25 years of age, they come out of technical or tertiary institutions only to enter an unfamiliar world where they are lost, frustrated, and totally feel let down by their elders. As a result, the whole of Africa's young generation, between 18 to 30 years, are disillusioned, and they are running to Europe, Middle East, China, USA in pursuit of the industrial value chains for which they were educated. Unfortunately, they are not being allowed in. We don't need to overemphasize, as you have seen thousands die over oceans and deserts as they try to cross. Many of those running have good literacy and digital skills, but we have not assured them of a livelihood at the end of the education journey. The irony is they are often running from a fertile pearl of Africa to look for opportunity in a desert. The difference is the education system there has created thinkers, innovators, transformers, and planners who create and drive resilience and sustainable systems with morally and ethically upright questions. Let me end by making some proposals of what we should do. Number one, Africa must think. We must stop delegating thinking. It is evident that the people who have propagated the systems anchored in the colonial models of education, they have inertia to reform themselves. The more they try to reform, the more they come out with the same. Let ADEA and other platforms support the formation of education think tanks across this continent. I discovered the secret in think tanks when I was appointed presidential advisor in 2020. I was assigned to spearhead research and development of solutions to the pandemic. I formed my first scientific think tank, and I was amazed at how many of the professionals and professors and experts thought very near they never thought that they can develop tools. They were more proficient in how they can acquire tools from external industrial value chains. When 15 months ago I was appointed Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, I realized we had no idea how to make science and technology and innovation work for Uganda. The people who had the ideas were outside the systems, and those in the system had no idea of how to achieve this. So I broke up science, technology, and innovation into industrial value chains and started to engage all stakeholders in think tanks. The mindset change, the flow of ideas, and the progress is phenomenal in just 15 months. Number two, what should we do? Give opportunity to innovations, indigenous, on the continent. Whereas it is good to benchmark and learn from others, Africa's unique context will require original innovations, ladies and gentlemen. No matter how much we whitewash, we are going to end up with more and bigger of the same. There have been emerging original concepts on how to deliver industrial value chains on the continent, but despite multitude of presentations in workshops, we keep them as small projects on the sidelines and never allow them in the mainstream. This is partly due to the fear to miss targets set internationally. I am glad that we have, at this meeting, recommended approaches based on evidence. There are solid examples on the continent, like the SPEDA model developed by Makerere University, which has for 15 years sat, and yet it has clearly demonstrated how to transform communities through that model. Number three, let us get research and development going. Ladies and gentlemen, let's stop pretending that by educating children better, when we are not creating employment opportunities, we will have better education on this continent. We won't. The children will keep dropping out. So for me, being Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, I cannot end my talk without emphasizing the role of science, technology and innovation in education and human capital development. Without valid research and development and commercialization of products to get industrial value chains going on the continent, Africa will not be able to contextualize a relevant education system. Because you're educating them for who? You're educating them better for who to give them the jobs. Without R&D, the R&D should not be about publications and reports and conference presentations, but about commercialization of products that grow into industries. R&D should be about fighting poverty and the underdevelopment of Africa. This intervention alone will remedy tertiary and vocational education. In Uganda, we had a clerk's version of degree called mechanical engineering. But in the market, we had a hierarchy of service providers ranging from those who are not educated to PhD holders, all doing motor vehicle repairs. The only difference was what you paid for the service and maybe the ambience of where you repaired your car. However, over the past years, we have deliberately focused on developing an indigenous automotive industry. We now have Chira Motors Corporation, which has produced both diesel and electric buses. This one innovation has changed the trajectory of mechanical engineering education in the country. Students no longer see themselves as auto mechanics, but as engineers who can innovate new parts, supply components, and professors have changed their way of teaching. I've seen a lot of good tools here aimed at digitalizing education, which we welcome. I still cannot help to think, which part of the value chain of the digital tools is coming out of Africa, whose supply will create opportunities for the children of the continent. Is it the software or the hardware? But with good and well-structured R&D, we'll be able to identify and also prioritize to meet our own needs, such as providing adequate food on the continent, overcoming nature elements like the impact of drought, and addressing century-old endemic and pandemic health challenges, as well as meet many basic needs of life. In conclusion, Africa has not had a relevant education system since independence. The one we are mourning over as disrupted by COVID-19 is better gone and forgotten. I sincerely pray that this triennial will now focus on harnessing the opportunity provided by COVID-19 to unleash the renaissance of an African education so as to lead the continent to where it should be, an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the international arena as aspired in the Africa we want, Agenda 2063. I also hope it will result into concrete decisions and actions, including formation of education think tanks, to come up with the original ideas that reposition education on the continent. I challenge all of us to think deep into, think outside of, and in a number of cases, consider tearing or even throwing away the whole box of the current education and start over. Let's start on it. Before I end, I would like to thank you for the opportunity once again. I hope I've passed on my passion for the continent. And for that matter, I would like to propose that the next triennial is held in Uganda. I wish you all fruitful deliberations. And in Uganda, we say, for God and my country. God bless you.
Madame la ministre, merci beaucoup pour ce discours si profond et visionnaire. L'ADEA est fière de vous compter parmi les membres de son comité directeur. Mesdames et messieurs, notre prochain intervenant a l'éducation dans ses gènes. Elle a une riche carrière dans l'enseignement avant d'accéder à un certain nombre de portefeuilles ministériels. Au cours des dernières années, elle a fait des preuves d'audace en lançant une réforme du secteur de l'éducation et y instaurant l'enseignement continu de base de 9 ans. Elle a également fait preuve de vision en adoptant les tendances mondiales et en promouvant les parcours éducatifs pour la création de l'enseignement polytechnique. Elle est également une fervente partisane de la technologie dans l'éducation. Elle a offert des tablettes aux élèves du primaire et a introduit le portail de soutien en ligne aux élèves du secondaire. Elle est aussi l'une des artisans à avoir donné l'éducation gratuite au niveau de l'enseignement supérieur dans son pays. En septembre 2022, elle a été élevée au rang de Honorary Fellow du Commonwealth of Learning pour sa contribution exceptionnelle à l'enseignement à distance et son engagement dans l'utilisation des ressources éducatives libres. Mesdames et messieurs, nous avons le grand plaisir d'inviter sur scène l'honorable Madame Lila Devi, Duncan Lachumun, vice-premier ministre, ministre de l'Éducation, de l'Enseignement supérieur des sciences et de la technologie de la République de Maurice, pour ce discours d'ouverture.
Honorable Dr. Monica Musinero, Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation of Uganda, Chairperson of the African Union, STC-ESTI Bureau, and ADEA Steering Committee. Excellencies, Ministers from ADEA member states, Mr. Albert Nisigiyuma, Executive Secretary of ADEA, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished delegates, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me wish you all a wonderful morning, afternoon also, as the case may be, and extend all of you present here, physically or virtually, warm greetings and heartfelt welcome from the people of the Republic of Mauritius. We are indeed very proud as a nation to host this key ADEA Triennial Conference on Education for the continent. Allow me to extend a special welcome to the several partners of ADEA, particularly the development agencies and other organizations that have supported the implementation of the strategic actions of the ADEA. This is a testimony of their unflinching commitment and deep engagement to the cause of education in Africa. As I stand before you today, I'm reminded of the 2003 ADEA biennial meeting that was also held in Mauritius. Then and now, the objectives have been the same. ADEA has not deviated from its major objective of making these high-level ministerial fora a platform of exchange for frank and open discussions, in brief, to allow a free flow of ideas and best practices to be shared. Then and now, the platform still engages ministers, development agencies, and educational professionals in a dialogue to develop convergent approaches to challenges facing education. I say the objectives are the same. In fact, the questions are the same, but the answers are now contextually different. I recall that in 2003, the rampage caused by the AIDS pandemic resulted in the holding of a roundtable dedicated to defining strategies to stem the tide. Destiny has it that 19 years later, we are all asked to reflect during this triennial on the impact of another pandemic, certainly more deadly, COVID-19, on our educational system and the sharp disruptive pivots it has engendered as part of the resilience building. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are 8 years away from the deadline of 2030. We have just 8 years left to meet the targets of SDG 4. Let us remind ourselves that this education goal seeks to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Our meeting should be seen as part of the momentum that has been gaining ground globally, one that has reached a pinnacle with the September Transforming Education Summit called by the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres. Practically all of our countries and organizations represented by many of you actively participated in the discussions. our heads of state and governments made public statements about measures that would reboot our systems so as to effectively cope with a post-pandemic world. Our meeting will over these 2 days give us an opportunity to renew our commitment to education as a fundamental public good. In fact, it gives our continent the opportunity to pursue a leap forward and sustain the momentum. And agree with Dr. Monica when she says we need to seize this opportunity and try to reimagine, redesign our education systems. But the tasks, ladies and gentlemen, the task is daunting. UNESCO figures indicate that over 1/5 of African children between the ages of 6 and 11 are not in school, while nearly 60% of youth between the ages of 15 and 17 are not enrolled. And the overwhelmingly critical learning crisis the international community talks about today can only worsen the scenario. Sound foundational learning is an imperative if we do not want to have learning crisis impacting adversely on economic growth. It is thus incumbent upon us to ensure that all of our children and youth access education as an inalienable right. Only then can they be better prepared to deal with the challenges of living in the 21st century world. At the same time, we should ascertain that our learners are not shortchanged by our education systems. We need to question ourselves. Are we giving them the education they legitimately expect to have? Is the education they are receiving preparing them to be fit to operate in an era dominated by constantly evolving technology? Are we giving them the education they really need? Access, relevance, quality, equity, and inclusiveness should remain the mainstay of our education systems. Shouldn't they? But then again, are they? Ladies and gentlemen, it is of cardinal importance that the education resilience strategy that we are all elaborating in our respective countries should be inclusive enough to take on board all our learners, including those who are marginalized or who have special needs. Ladies and gentlemen, I reckon that if the pandemic has done anything aside from upending the normalcy of our existence and causing 147 million children to miss more than half of their in-class instruction, it is that it has opened new pathways, new areas of focus for our education systems. The acquisition of digital skills is one. Indeed, if there has been a silver lining in the education tribulations we have experienced, it is that innovations have been triggered, resulting in a major digital leap. The digital transformation would have come for sure, but COVID-19 accelerated its progress by years. Here, as a parenthesis, we must also reckon with the fact that, as the McKinsey report puts it, the work of the future will need people with employable skills, one of which is to work efficiently in a digital environment. But the digital transformation in schools also relies on the extent to which we empower our teachers with new skills related to digital learning modalities, as well as social and emotional learning, amongst others. Allow me, dear friends, a small digression here. I often say that the pandemic has transformed our language through the influx of a number of lexical items that have now become household words: social and physical distancing, asymptomatic, quarantine, contact tracing, the flattening of the curve, and what have you. But there's one also that has become very relevant in the education world. It's the word frontliners, but also key actors. And I'd love to consider that teachers and school leaders for being key actors, precisely. They who have ensured, often against all odds, that learners remain connected to education. COVID-19 has taught us a lot of things, including the fact that we, as policymakers, have a responsibility to enable teachers to transform themselves and become agents of change, as the UN Secretary General put it. And that means investing massively in building their capacity, investing massively in the empowerment of teachers. But also, I also believe we should equally envisage a shift, a move away from mere professional development towards increased professional learning. Everything today, the learning poverty I was talking about earlier, the need for learners to be creative, agile, and adaptable, points to the importance of teachers moving from the previously art of teaching model to the modern and ineluctable science of learning. From art of teaching to science of learning. Today, Jacques Delors' 4 pillars of education for the 21st century, namely learning to know, learning to do, learning to live, and learning to be, must be complemented by learning to think. Learning to think will help our youth to take better decisions and avoid rut thinking. And that's where teachers have a new role cut out for them, to think how to teach learners to think. Thinking differently and not staying in a rut. This brings to mind here the importance, as nicely put by my colleague, the importance of research. Yesterday, another colleague of mine spoke on the heavy investment made in the higher education sector in her country. Let me go deeper into this for a minute. Conventional wisdom has it that the objectives of higher education should be aligned with the national goals of a country. And higher education should be for better basic education. Higher education for better education, better basic education. Mauritius is betting enormously on its development as a knowledge hub. And in this context, I'm pleased to inform that the national qualification framework in Mauritius has been mapped onto the SADC qualification framework, which means there is now a facilitation mechanism for student mobility from countries on the continent and elsewhere for further studies in Mauritius. This is what the Secretary General was stating, the Executive Secretary was saying earlier. We want mobility within the continent, allowing our students to move from one country to the other. We want seamless movement, seamless mobility. Let me also see the opportunity presented here by these days to remind the audience that Mauritius is offering 50 scholarships every year under the Mauritius to Africa Scholarship Scheme. These scholarships cover certificates to post-PhD studies. We must agree that research undertaken at PhD level and beyond is essential for societal improvement. What is, however, required is impact for research that would provide practical solutions to socioeconomic problems and thus improved quality of life and well-being of all individuals. And this is what my colleague was saying earlier. When we prepare people, when we prepare our students, we need as well to ensure that the environment, that the ecosystem is ready to accept them, that there is a link between what we are producing and where they're getting. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I was referring earlier to the Transforming Education Summit. One of the benefits of on the local scene has been the mandatory national consultation process that countries always place a premium on, getting all stakeholders on board so as to ensure that reforms and innovations potentially enjoy high implementation and success rates. I'm very happy indeed that ADEA's triennial encourage a major partnership among ministers, experts, education professionals, researchers, and representatives from development agencies. The expertise and support these latter bring is often priceless in enabling investment, heavy scalable solution, and thus place education upfront and center. Indeed, I am pleased that these agencies have always stood by the ADEA because they believe in the work and commitment of our association. For all the support you bring to us in fulfilling our commitment vis-à-vis our learners, I can only say thank you. Thank you for sharing your know-how and helping the collective endeavor to share best practices and further encouraging the movement from best practices to next practices. I'm convinced that this conference will be crowned by success and will reach its objectives in the best interests of our societies. I thank you all, dear participants, for taking time and the efforts to engage personally or virtually in the debates of this important event. We are sure that you have brought your intellectual input and experience to contribute to our collective effort for these 3 days. I thank you for traveling long and short distances to be here with us, and to the invisible participants joining us from different time zones. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, nous avons tous eu une responsabilité collective vis-à-vis de nos enfants. Nous devons assurer l'épanouissement de chaque enfant sur le continent afin qu'ils deviennent des citoyens responsables. Notre but sacré, c'est qu'ils réussissent tous dans la vie et qu'ils réussissent aussi leur vie. Unissons donc nos efforts collectifs afin d'atteindre cet objectif. I now wish you all a successful conference, and may I also suggest that you do walk around and visit the different strands of exhibits. I'm sure you will be interested to meet students of Polytechnics Mauritius who are exhibiting IT capstone projects that reflects the innovation that young students are capable of. I have now the distinct honor and pleasure of declaring the 2022 ADEA Triennial open, and I thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Vice Prime Minister. We indeed look forward to a fabulous 2 days of engagement in education. Ladies and gentlemen, I will invite you to remain seated while we allow our hostesses to guide the chief guests and dignitaries out of the room. Ladies and gentlemen, let me seize this opportunity for a quick piece of housekeeping information. As the Honorable Vice Prime Minister just mentioned, this triennale also hosts exhibition booths from our several partners. We invite you to visit those booths set up in the corridor just outside of this room and to engage with our partners. And we wish that in doing so, a number of fruitful collaboration will take place. We will now take a short break of 15 minutes and refreshments will be served just outside this room. Given the short time and the time constraints, we will kindly request you to be back on time so that we complete this session. Thank you so much. Thank you.